Holy Spirit, come now to illuminate our hearts and minds to understand what you are speaking through your Spirit to us. Open our eyes and ears and hearts. We rebuke all spirits, demonic, witchcraft, or otherwise, who want to bring confusion, unbelief, or rebellion in Jesus' name. Welcome to the Power and Prophecy channel. This is the Deconverting, Deconstructing Ex-Christian series, Part 1, Missing Ingredient Number 1, Raising the Dead. In this video, we are going to go over the official medical records of a case of the dead being raised, which I personally experienced at a hospital in West Los Angeles in Southern California. But before we get into that, we need to take notice of a few things. There are many very genuine personal YouTube testimonies describing how a Christian became an ex-Christian, with their reasons for leaving the faith ranging from re-examining and questioning their beliefs, which I believe is a good thing, and it's something that we should all be doing, by the way. Asking difficult questions and not finding answers, which is very unfortunate because answers can be found to every conceivable Bible question on the internet these days. Doctrinal conflicts, interpersonal conflicts with others in the church whom they had put their trust in and so were naturally disappointed. Difficult personal circumstances with questions about how a good God could allow the difficulties. Conflicts with what secular scientists teach about the sciences, etc. These ex-Christians come from all walks of life. They were regular churchgoers, pastors, worship leaders, gospel singers, youth leaders, you name it, and they are all no longer Christians and are now often self-described atheists. When you watch these videos, they're very genuine and have many good points to make, of which some I actually agree with. But they are all missing a very important ingredient, which is first-hand experience with supernatural physical healings and especially with the raising of the dead. So, I want to start with this verse, Matthew 10:8, where Jesus commands his disciples to go, heal the sick, cleanse the lepers, raise the dead, and cast out demons. Which they went and did, by the way. And Acts chapter 20. Let's go through this. Seated in a window was a young man named Eutychus, who was sinking into a deep sleep as Paul talked on and on. When he was sound asleep, he fell to the ground from the third story and was picked up dead. Paul went down, threw himself on the young man, and put his arms around him. "Don't be alarmed," he said. "He's alive." Then he went upstairs again and broke bread and ate. As you can see here, raising the dead was no big deal. Right after Paul raised Eutychus from the dead, he went, ate a meal, kept on preaching. Don't you love it? He nonchalantly ate a meal and continued on right where he had left off from his sermon right before he had raised the man from the dead. The common theme here is that if you are a Bible-believing, born-again Christian, you will experience physical healings sooner or later. You will be a first-hand eyewitness to a supernatural, miraculous physical healing, or you yourself will have that experience within your own body. And you may even experience the dead coming back to life. Not a big deal because the born-again, spirit-filled Christian is living a supernatural life. We're not just going to church, Bible study, talking about doctrine, and having good fellowship. No, we are experiencing God's supernatural miracles on a regular basis. Supernatural experiences is one of the main missing ingredients in all ex-Christian Deconstructing My Faith YouTube videos. You will not find one deconstructing, deconverting ex-Christian video where the personal testimony is that they experienced amazing healings and raisings of the dead, but decided to become an ex-Christian anyway. No. If you have an amazing supernatural experience up close, whether it be a physical healing or raising of the dead, you will never forget it, and your faith will be cemented in solid rock. You will never be one of the ex-Christians on YouTube speaking about how your faith was deconstructed, but instead, your faith will be built on solid rock. On the other hand, if you don't experience supernatural healings, this doesn't mean you're not a Christian, but it does mean your faith is on quarter throttle at best, rather than full throttle, and you are in danger of becoming the next YouTuber making a deconstructing my faith ex-Christian video. And I don't want that to happen to you. The thief, who is Satan, came to steal, kill, and destroy. In other words, Satan came to kill our faith, steal our faith, and destroy our faith. And as shown by all these deconversion, deconstruction, ex-Christian videos, he is having some success. And if he has to throw you under the bus to derail your faith, he will try. Satan may take something or someone away from you, knowing you may have a tendency to blame God for it. And Satan intends for you to walk away from your faith. Don't fall for it. So, for my personal supernatural example of the dead being raised, I was very fortunate to experience what I am about to describe. I did not do the raising of the dead myself, although I was praying like mad. God did the raising. I practiced medicine for 20 years, mostly in an urgent care emergency room setting, but on this particular day, I was standing as an observer in an unofficial capacity at an L&D, that's labor and delivery room, watching a full-term baby about to be born under routine circumstances. I have the full consent of the mother for the official medical record, birth record, which you are about to see now. This is the portion of the official medical birth record. The names have been blurred for privacy. This incident occurred in West Los Angeles at Kaiser Permanente, of which, like I said, I was there in an unofficial capacity. I was not a Kaiser Permanente employee. I was there simply to observe. And the child's birthday is July 12, 2003. He was discharged July 23rd, and you're also going to see July 23rd here. Here's a history of the mother. She was 38 years old, and the first significant thing you're going to notice was nuchal cord times 1, which means the cord went around the baby's neck once. Sometimes it goes around 2 times, 3 times, 4 times, multiple times, but in this case it was 1 time. And had an APGAR score of 200 at 1, 5, and 10 minutes, respectively. Now, let me just say something about APGAR scores. APGAR scores measure the baby's baby's heart rate, breathing, muscle tone, reflex response, and color in the first 1, 5, and 10 minutes of life. And a score of 7 to 10 means a newborn is in good to excellent health. A score of 4 to 6 means fair condition. Anything less than 4 means poor condition, and 0 means totally unresponsive, no heartbeat, no respirations, no breathing, no skin color, no capillary blood refill at the fingertips or anywhere, no muscle tone, no signs of life, basically dead. So by these APGAR scores, you can see that this baby was barely there at 1 minute, with a score of 2 at 1 minute, and score of 0 at 5, and score of 0 at 10, which means that the baby was not responding by then. So the third thing you're going to notice of significance here is that from 1 minute after birth to 29 minutes had no heart rate present. Now, in order to be considered alive, you actually have to have a heart rate. And without oxygen to the brain, medical science tells us after 10 minutes you're pretty much brain dead. Okay? And then here's the other one: required epinephrine 5 doses. Now, epinephrine is adrenaline. It's a stimulant. It's an upper to try and restart the heart. Now, why was the kid given 5 doses, which is a whole lot for a little baby? Well, here's why. In this particular case of the cord being wrapped around the neck, let me just start with a baby under normal circumstances. Because he's an unborn baby, his lungs aren't working because he's unborn. His heart will pump blood under pressure out the cord to the placenta to pick up oxygen from mom, and then his blood will passively, under low pressure, flow back to him, oxygenated. When the cord goes around the neck, it's not so much choking the kid, but it does such a severe U-turn around that little neck. It's like bending a garden hose. You kink that cord, man, you're in big trouble. In this particular case, it was actually worse because it was kinked just slightly and just enough so that his heart was when it was pumping, was able to generate enough pressure to have his blood squeeze past that kink, go out to the placenta, but as it's flowing back, low pressure, there wasn't enough pressure to overcome the kink on the way back in. So now all his blood's going out and it's not returning to him, which means now we're dealing with a kid with low volume, and that's why the epinephrine wasn't working, was there wasn't enough blood to circulate the epinephrine, and it was basically impossible to start the heart because there wasn't enough blood to perfuse his own coronary arteries. So let me go here to the code blue record. Code blue simply means that a person is blue, which means little to no oxygen, which means emergency, right? So the code actually started at 02:20 in the morning. Once again, here's the birthday, which was July 12, 2003. The baby's name has been blurred out for privacy. The doctor who initiated CPR has been blurred out for privacy. The type of arrest, asystole, has been checked off. That means cardiac arrest, right? No heartbeat. Respiratory arrest, which means no breathing. That means full arrest, which is the worst kind. Down here, you're going to notice more physicians who are present there to help, and their names have been blurred out for privacy. Here's the nurses section, registered nurses, RNs here, and the list of signatures actually goes way below this slide. And then here's another doctor here, and then RTs, which are respiratory therapists. They were there to intubate the child. Now, the reason why I bring this up is because this situation did not occur in a small private room. You're going to note, if you saw this page, it was full of signatures. At least, I'm guessing at least 25 to 30, right? That means 25 to 30 witnesses, right? So this situation did not happen with just one or two witnesses. No. There were multiple witnesses, 25 to 30, all of who had professional training in their field of practice at the university level, and they all became eyewitnesses of what God was about to do. Now, a few things about this record which we don't see is the child's birth weight and height. I committed it to memory. It was 7 pounds, 7 ounces, 21 inches, and the only reason why I was able to commit it to memory is because I remembered everything was in multiples of 7. Also, the brain MRI, which I also committed to memory, was that it showed anoxic changes, which means there were some slight changes to the brain due to low oxygen, but no atrophy, meaning no significant brain damage. So when this birth started, the mother was pushing, the head started to crown, we could see the top of the head, and under normal circumstances, there would be a scalp transducer, which is a device that would monitor the child's heart rate, but it kept falling off because of all the blood and secretions. If it had stayed on, we would have been able to see that the heart rate was starting to drop, right? Cardiac decelerations, and then we would know that most likely the cord was around the neck. But because that transducer kept falling off, we couldn't determine that until the head actually came out, and then we saw the cord. And then the physician in charge did the usual thing, which is try to pull the cord from around the neck, which didn't work, so he cut the cord, and that essentially stopped his blood from returning to him because most of his blood was in the placenta. I don't think it would have helped even if the cord was on at that point. So his heart stopped, and then pandemonium, right? Code blue. And of course, medical science says that after 10 minutes has passed, the child is basically brain dead, or at minimum severely brain damaged. And so at some point, a physician is allowed to ask the parent if they want to continue with the code, because there's very little hope. And the parents, they responded and said, hey, we don't have to have a perfect baby. We want to keep the code going. To which the physician replied, well, we realistically speaking, we can't continue forever, right? So we have to put a definite stop to these efforts sometime, and the official stop time that we have decided is 30 minutes. So I was standing there watching this whole thing and sweating. And while this code was going on, we could see the child, and the child was not responding, laying there, gray in color. Arms and legs had no muscle tone whatsoever, just dangling as the nurse was doing chest compressions. And a peculiar thing happened. The mother came to me and said, don't be distressed. God told me he is going to come back. And to that, I thought to myself, oh my gosh, we've lost the kid and kind of the mom now as well, because she's not, she's in denial. She's not understanding what dire circumstances is. And she's saying that God's going to bring her baby back. And it really saddened me that she didn't understand the reality of the situation. So I kept watching the clock, and I know they're going to stop at 30 minutes. So I'm looking at my watch. It goes 28 minutes, 29 minutes. And at 29 minutes, the nurse decides, well, now is about the time we need to get ready to stop. So she's about to disconnect and all of the monitoring. And so she looks at the monitor, the cardiac monitor especially, one last time to make sure that the kid is flatlining, and notices the rhythm is returning. The rhythm is returning. That means the heart's starting to start again. And she's like, oh my God, he's coming back. And she is talking loud. She's pointing at the monitor. We all looking at that monitor. And so all the workers start working again. Actually, some of the workers were actually preparing to leave the room. They all come running back. So they all rush around the child, and they rush the child off to the neonatal ICU. And about 5 minutes later, the neonatologist comes back to me, and he said, oh my gosh, that kid's heart stopped again over there. And I had to give him another epidose. And the reason why, of course, is because the child had so little blood in his body that he was having a hard time keeping his own heart running. And so the neonatologist runs to the parents and asks them to sign the consent for a blood transfusion right away. So they signed the consent. I ran with the neonatologist back to the neonatal ICU to look at the child before the transfusion. And what we saw was just incredible. That child was as white as a bed sheet. I mean, beyond pale. And breathing so hard because the kid was low on blood, which means no hemoglobin, which means no oxygen exchange. So the child got a blood transfusion, then turned pink like a regular kid. So they put the child on I believe it was Dilantin to prevent seizures, and the child was not experiencing seizures. The child also had a bilateral pneumothorax from the child bagging for half an hour, and so the neonatologist took a needle and needle aspirated that out, and pneumothorax is air around the lung, not inside the lung, but outside. So he had to suck that air out from outside the lung. And then at 4 days, because there were no seizures, they decided to wean the child off of Dilantin, and which causes a lot of sleeping because it's kind of a downer. And so when they weaned the child off of Dilantin, the child woke up, and then they placed the child on the mother's breast, and the child started suckling right away, which is a great sign, because if a child cannot find his own mother's breast, he's got big, big problems. So that was a great sign, and the child kept looking better and better and was discharged, as you can see here, on July 23rd, 2003, about 11 days later, or almost 12 days later. So one thing I also need to mention is that I went back to the mother and I asked her again to repeat what she was trying to say to me, because I wasn't receiving it the first time around. So she said, when the nurse called code blue, that she was sitting there wondering, oh my gosh, what's going to happen to her child, and so on and so forth. And suddenly she said she had this very strange sensation, a complete sense of peace, right, in a very non-peaceful situation, I might add. And she said in a flash, she knew that God wanted to show everyone in that room, especially the workers there, 3 specific things in this specific order. First, he wanted to show everyone his glory. Second, his power over death. And third was his love for humanity. Right? And in that order. And she still remembers it to this day. So I didn't know what to think about all this and what she was saying, but by the time the child was discharged, I had realized I had seen a miracle, an absolute miracle. So a couple takeaways here. One, sometimes God speaks to people directly. Number 2, like the mother. Number 2, he does some very big, big miracles to get our attention. He got my attention for sure. And I guess, this child just turned out to be the biggest celebrity over there at Kaiser for the next several months, which is completely understandable. But it was just amazing. And I guess this is about it. This is the end of part 1, I guess. But I just want to mention also, in case some deconstructing ex-Christians who see this video claim that I'm somehow trying to delegitimize or invalidate their reasons for leaving the faith, I definitely am not. I'm simply describing what I experienced and what I saw with my own 2 eyes. You experienced what you experienced, and I experienced what I experienced. We're different individuals, we experience different things, and that's really not a surprise, no big deal. If some individuals do not like what I experienced, all I can say is, well, I still experienced it. I mean, I didn't ask for it. I didn't wake up that morning going, gee, Lord, I'm bored, give me something exciting to experience. I mean, it was a harrowing thing. When you've been practicing medicine for 20 years, sometimes a boring day is a good day, is all I've got to say. I mean, there's something to be said for boring. This experience was a little too exciting. But it turned out so good, and it really built my faith up, that's for sure. And needless to say, we've got here the medical records to prove it. So, in this series, part 2, which I will be posting soon, it's titled The Deconstructing Ex-Christian, Missing Ingredient Number 2, Supernatural Healings. Also, please check out our other video series, The Trump Prophecies, which is another supernatural event in the making. But this time it's on a national level, no less. I want to end by just showing you a few photos of the child about a year and a half years old. There's one. There's another. There's another. All right, so all in all, there was a good ending to this story, and I mean, it just left me speechless. That's all I gotta say. So, one more quick note to make. I've actually run into people who have tried to downplay what I saw, and they were non-medical people, of course, and all I have to say is they really don't know what they're saying. You have a kid here whose heart stopped for a half an hour. The chest compressions were ineffective because he was basically almost half drained of blood. And it was all room temperature besides. It's not like we pulled him out of a freezer or something. There's no way any human being in that situation is going to come back after half an hour without severe brain damage. And that's even if they come back at all. So, and to top it off, the mother predicted that her son would be coming back. And right before the code was to be stopped at 30 minutes, lo and behold, at 29 and a half minutes, his heart starts again. So all of these cannot simply be coincidences. Anyway, thank you for watching this video, and we'll see you at the next one.